Every day, the world moves on as it always has. Cities wake up, work begins, and life feels familiar. But beneath that sense of normality, something is shifting. The climate is changing, and the systems we rely on, energy, food, water, cities, finance, are under pressure in ways we're only beginning to understand. These changes don't live in reports or projections, they are already shaping people, livelihoods and communities. We created the Climate Leadership Podcast so these challenges don't remain abstract or distant, but are explored through the people working inside these systems, making real decisions with real consequences, often without clear answers. This is not a space for fear, blame, or perfection. It's a space for honest conversations about what leadership looks like in a changing world. If you're listening, you're already part of that leadership. Let's begin the conversation.
Welcome to another episode of the Climate Leadership Podcast. Today's conversation challenges how we define climate infrastructure and who we recognize as climate leaders. My guest for today is Mr. Rowan Foley, CEO of the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation and a nationally respected leader in Indigenous land management and carbon farming. Rowan comes from the Wandana clan of the Bachala people, traditional owners of Garg and the Hervey Bay region. His career spans more than 3 decades, from working as a ranger at Uluru, Kata, Juta National Park to negotiating Australia's first Indigenous protected area in Western Australia, to representing Indigenous perspectives at UN climate negotiations. In this episode, we explore Indigenous leadership as climate infrastructure, not as a social add-on, but as a foundational system that delivers climate mitigation, biodiversity protection, cultural continuity, and long-term resilience. This conversation reframes climate leadership through country, governance, and intergenerational responsibility. Thank you, Rowan, for joining me today. Before we start, can I please request you to introduce yourself for the audience?
Oh, hello. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm in Central Australia, on Aranda country, the traditional owners, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Rowan. So let's get started. When people hear the term climate infrastructure, they often think of energy systems or finance. From your perspective, how should Indigenous leadership and traditional ecological knowledge be understood as climate infrastructure?
The hope for the future is Indigenous lands. So the infrastructure has to reflect the values and the priorities of Indigenous people. And the infrastructure needs to be designed in such a way that it suits Indigenous people and Indigenous lands.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, that doesn't. At the moment, it's very much a Western construct or a colonial construct, you might say. And but the jewel in the crown really is Indigenous people and then Indigenous lands, because they have the highest potential for climate mitigation and biodiversity. But the infrastructure or the tools that people use is not designed in that manner.
Mm-hmm. So, Rowan, from your experience, like when did you started with this climate leadership thought process and it became a vision or it became a purpose in your life?
We were established in 2010, so that was about 16 years ago. We had a vision around carbon farming, and that the main methodology we use in Central Australia and Northern Australia is savanna burning. So burning the country early in the season, which reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and by knocking out or reducing wildfires. And across Northern Australia, there's been a 52% reduction in wildfires. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that to some Canadian Métis people a little while ago, some Canadian Indigenous people, and they just couldn't believe it. So this is all scientifically backed with satellite measurements. a 52% reduction in bushfires by using an Indigenous methodology.
Okay.
So anyway, so we started in 2010. So I've been around for about 16 years now.
Okay. So you have worked on country for decades, from ranger programs to national park management. What does long-term stewardship enable that short-term political or investment cycle cannot?
Well, one of the sayings around Indigenous land is that we're land rich and dirt poor. So there has to be a viable economic solution to managing Indigenous lands sustainably. And that's where carbon farming comes in. It's not so much the carbon credit, it's about the economics of managing Indigenous land. And it's like, what else can you do? You might be able to do a bit of tourism, you might be able to do a bit of mining, but they're all very extractive and they're all very Western concepts. It's like what reflects the values and the priorities of the traditional owners, the Indigenous people. And carbon farming is the only solution to that question that we could come up with. So that's really why we started down this path. And we became interested in the carbon industry. And then, and so we started down that path because it's an sustainable economic prospect for Indigenous people to engage in and to do well, to manage their country and to increase their biodiversity and reduce greenhouse gases. It just fits all the bills.
Okay, so Rowan, can you please explain to me something about carbon farming? Like how is it done?
Sure. Well, if you burn early in the season when your fires are low intensity, and they're smaller, so smaller in size, so they're very patchy. So you might do a big area, but it's very patchy. Then your greenhouse gas emissions are going to be lower than the average over the last 10 years. And so you measure your average greenhouse gas emissions. It's called your baseline. And if you're below your baseline, if you're below your average, then you generate Australian carbon credit units. And then those carbon credits can be sold in the voluntary market. So if you have a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from what would normally be. So if you stand back and you go, well, normally we have big wildfires coming through and our greenhouse gas emissions are quite high, whereas with this, they're actually quite low. So you're measuring the difference between low and high. And that's where the carbon credits are in here.
Okay.
Between low and high.
So this carbon credit which are generated because of this gap, there is a market for this?
It's a very good market in Australia. So I'll be very honest. So we buy at $60 per tonne and we sell at $72. And this is something that you will find that most carbon companies, they never disclose what their sale price is. So $60 goes to the traditional owners and we make $12 for managing the project and providing advice and going to market. I know that we were doing work in Fiji and throughout the Indo-Pacific, and people over there for a red project, they were getting $5 a tonne. And for a commercial company, an international commercial company, they were getting $20 a tonne. So when I said to them, oh, in Australia, we pay $60 a tonne, they nearly fell off their chairs. That's when they knew they were being ripped off.
Okay. Okay. So, Rowan, like you mentioned about Australia, carbon markets are already in big flow, like it's a real thing over there.
Yeah, well, they've been going for 17, 18 years, but it's a domestic market. So I can't sell overseas. I can only sell within Australia. It's a closed market system.
Okay. So indigenous communities have historically been positioned as beneficiaries of climate projects rather than leaders. How has that framing limited both climate outcomes and community outcomes?
Well, when you talk to people internationally, because we go to the COP forums, COP climates, and they look at carbon farming, they go, oh, we're not really sure about that. And you start to ask questions, and you go, why, and how do you set it up? And they don't believe you when you say, well, in Australia, we own the land, we own the carbon project, we own the carbon credits, and we determine how we go to market. This is our industry. And when you say this to people internationally, they go, what? What do you mean you own the carbon projects and you own the carbon credits and you determine how you go to market? So, which is very normal for us. Like, that's just like, well, it's our land, it's our project, it's our carbon credits, and off we go to the market. Like, it's pretty straightforward. But when people overseas from Africa and South America, when they start to raise questions, you realize something's going wrong. You realize that there's something wrong here. And then the concepts that we talk about, you can see that there's something going wrong, and that's a problem.
Okay. So I'm sure you must have talked to leaders from all over the world. Can you give me some example or details about this thing, carbon markets in US or Europe, these areas?
Well, we're talking with Métis in Canada at the moment. So they don't have their own methodology. So we have an Indigenous, savanna burning is rather an Indigenous methodology. Well, non-Indigenous people, anyone can use it. It's an open methodology. But the source of it, where it came from, was Indigenous people and Indigenous fire management.
Right.
And you talk to people in Canada about having their own methodology, particularly around fire, because First Nations burnt country, and they just don't have it. You talk about some of the concepts around. We talk about environmental, social, and cultural core benefits. We don't talk about co-benefits. The reason why we don't talk about co-benefits is because if the environment and the community is a co-benefit, what's the main benefit? And it's money. And that's wrong. All right. If you're doing climate change only to make money, that is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's be very clear about this. The reason why we go carbon farming is to achieve environmental, social, and cultural core benefits. The money is a co-benefit. Right. If you can make sustainable income on Aboriginal lands, great. That's what we want. Fabulous. But that's not the reason why we're doing it. We're not doing it to make money. Money is a co-benefit. But the European system, the way that everything is set up in this, and this is the problem, is that people go carbon farming to make money. And that's why you have a lack of integrity and you have a lot of problems, because it ends up becoming a money-making scheme. And that's where Indigenous people get scammed, because it's all about money. And that is wrong. So I'm just going to be really clear about this,
Makes sense,
That's where things are going wrong, That's where people talk about a lack of integrity, and you go, well, why would that be? It's because they're chasing the money. You don't have to be Einstein to figure this stuff out.
Everyone knows it, but people keep doing all these things, right?
Yeah, and so therefore Indigenous people get ripped off. Because it's about the money, and you got to go, no, it's not about the money. It's about looking after the community, looking after the environment. And if you have integrity, if you're doing the right thing, people, you're ironically, your product or your commodity will be worth more because it does have integrity. And then you invite investors, come along, meet the people, have a look at the project, come along and see what we're doing. It's all, there's no greenwashing here. It's all very open. It's all very transparent. Come and check it out. And so it's at least all good things. And I think that's part of the problem, is that when people talk about a lack of integrity, it's because people put money first.
Right. So, Rowan, you mentioned a couple of times about ripping off Indigenous people. Like, can you give an example? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, in the South Pacific, Pacific Island nations, small, or SIDS, small island developing states, Red were paying $5 a tonne. An international carbon company were paying $20 a tonne. This is to the landholders, and by comparison, we were paying $60 a tonne. So when the traditional owners, the Indigenous landholders, realised that they're only being paid lollies, they thought that was it. And I'm going, no. So that's what they pay you. That's not what they sell it for.
Right.
In Europe, they make a lot of money. So, and another example in Timor-Leste, they were being paid 50 cents per tree, but the carbon credit was being sold for $42 US per unit. So people get a bit confused around that, like they'll say, yeah, you get the 50 cents. Yeah, that's what you get paid. That's not what they're selling it for. Right. They're selling it for $42. And people, and you go, how did you figure that out? So we just pretend to be a buyer. Just go online and just go buy one of your carbon credits, and you'll soon find out what the price is.
Yeah.
Just pretend to buy it. That's what we did. That's how we found out the price.
Okay.
And my colleague said, "Oh yeah, but how are we gonna? They're not going to tell us." I said, "Just pretend to be a buyer.
Yeah.
Just go on and pretend that you're going to buy some, and you'll soon figure out the price." And when I was in Fiji, and they said, "Oh, Rowan, this is really complex. It's really difficult," I just said, "Rubbish. Don't tell me that." I said, "If you want to figure this out, you only have to do one thing. Just follow the money. That's all you have to do. Just follow the money."
Yes.
And the whole project will become very, very clear to you. Somebody's making money, and it's not you.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's such a universal truth, right?
Yeah.
So Rowan, like it seems to me like lack of knowledge, right? Something like.
Yeah, there's a lot of. And because it's still a new industry, and I think it's still evolving, so it's still very much a colonial. And this is the other thing I said in Fiji, because they said, "Oh, Rowan, we don't know about carbon. We don't, it's very complex. It's very difficult." And once again, I said, "Nonsense, absolute rubbish." I said, "The Europeans have been coming here for over 300 years. They've taken your gold, taken your minerals, taken your people, taken your water, and now they're here to take your carbon. Nothing's changed. It's exactly the same for the last 300 years. The only thing that has changed is the commodity. They've switched the commodity around, but the process is exactly the same. They'll come here, take the commodity, pay you as little as possible, go back to Europe, sell it for big dollars and make a profit. That's the model that's been for the last 300 years. The model has not changed. The only thing that has changed is the commodity.
Right.
So, once I said that to them, they were like, "Yeah, right, got it." Okay. It's exactly the same. Nothing's changed.
Okay.
And if you just follow the money, that's all you have to do. Just follow the money, and then everything becomes very clear.
Okay.
And look, I'm not saying that people should not make money. Like we make $12 a ton. Okay, we make money. But the traditionals make $60 a ton.
Yes.
Like let's be fair and reasonable about this.
Yes.
In most places, it's the opposite. The carbon companies make $60 and the traditionals make $12. Like it's come on.
True. So So Rowan, that brings me to the question about government, right? Like, does the Australian government give some subsidies or help these Indigenous people through when this trading is going on?
No, it's still not really. Back in the start, so 15, 16 years ago, there was a couple. We did get a little bit of help, but not now. So everyone's, and that's the problem now, is to establish these projects. So a Savannah burning project costs around about $50,000 to $75,000 to establish. By the time you do all the planning and the mapping and everything, so you've got to come up with at least $50,000. And a lot of Indigenous people are very poor, so you're always scratching. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul to say, "Oh, we can get a little bit of money. You can get 25,000 from here and 10,000 from there and 15,000 from over here." So you try and sort of scratch $50,000 together, which will take a couple of years to get started, and then you need rangers, you need employees, you need wages, you need you need a vehicle, you need equipment. Okay. So it's and the way I explain that, it's like an agribusiness. Like it's just like if you're running cattle, you've got to buy material for the fence. You've got to buy a tank for a water tank for the water. Like you have to get all the you got to have a vehicle. Just like if you're going to run cattle, it's exactly, and then you can take your cow to market and sell it, but you have to have the money to buy a vehicle, a fence, have wages, water, food. You've got to have all that. So that's difficult when people don't have any money to start off with. So called seed funding to get the project started.
Okay.
It is always very difficult.
And Rowan, these projects are long term, like 2-3 years?
25 years.
25 years.
Mm.
Okay. So because you're planting the savanna first and then later on.
Well, that's the crediting period for a project is 25 years. So a minimum 25 to 100 years.
Okay. And we call these projects, they come under climate mitigation part, or?
Yeah, climate mitigation, and the two ways: climate sequestration and climate abatement.
Okay.
Is the two processes within there.
Mm-hmm.
Abatement or sequestration.
Right. Okay. So, Rowan, through the Aboriginal Carbon Foundation and the Climate Integrity Alliance, you emphasize core benefits rather than co-benefits. Why is separating these dimensions in climate markets so important?
The environmental, social, and cultural values must always come first. So that's the core benefits. That's the core reason of why we're doing it. That's the core benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And the money must always come second. So that's the co-benefit.
Okay.
In the carbon industry, we talk about the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about money must come first. Money is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about making money, and the environment and the community must always come second. They're always a lower priority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get corruption, and that's where you get people getting ripped off because they put money first. It's all about making money.
Got it.
And so that's why we flip the script. So no. We don't want corruption.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want. There's a lack of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what leads to a lack of integrity. It's because of greed.
Yeah.
That's because people are chasing money. That's the problem.
Yeah. True. Understood. So Rowan, you have, I think, spoken at COP. Did you speak in COP 30?
Yeah, I've spoken at COP 30, COP 28. Spoke at the Paris Agreement.
Okay.
I've spoken at a few.
So can you share something like in COP 30? Like, what was your pitch, or what were you trying to communicate?
That there are carbon projects with integrity that do support Indigenous people. And we want people to support that. Whilst there are people who are doing the right thing, there are people who believe in what we're doing, and the traditional owners, the Indigenous people, are the major beneficiaries of that work. So we wanted to start to build an alliance around integrity to let investors know, hey, if you do want to invest, if you do want to do the right thing, there's a place for you. It's a safe investment. You're in safe hands. And come and meet the traditional owners. Come and talk to people. Come and check out the project.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about having a safe place for people to come.
Okay. And I was watching some videos about your foundation, and I see a lot of people visiting your sites and having discussions. Can you share more about that? Community engagement?
Well, it was just last year. We just opened it up last year, and that was just an idea where because we do this all the time. And then we were thinking, maybe the people who buy the carbon credits or friends and supporters would like to come and experience this as well. And I was like, yeah, maybe. I don't know, maybe. And so we just put it out there and just thought, if you want to come along, because we do it all the time. And we had people come along and said, mate, we would love to come along. We would love to do some cultural burning with the traditional arts. We'd love to be on country. Mm-hmm. And so we opened it up for friends and supporters, investors to come along, and they sing about it. They rave about it. People say. I had one guy from another company come along. He said it's the most fun I've had in 2 years, like since he started working with this other company. I said, well, don't tell your boss that. He said that was the most fun I've had in 2 years, Rowan. He said, coming along and doing this, so So we've opened it up, and that's part of it now. I talk about greenwashing to make sure there's no greenwashing. You can come and inspect it. You can be very transparent, very open.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just about, because we have a lot of fun. Like it's a lot of fun, and so we're just sharing the fun. We just go, oh, well, do you want to come along? This is what we do. Do you want to experience that? Because you sort of get a bit used to it. You just go, you become very accustomed to having adventures. But other people, it's like, oh wow, it's like, this is amazing. And so yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, now even I want to come and visit you sometime. Okay. So you have presented at UN climate forums and worked extensively in remote communities. How different do climate conversation look at the global level compared to on country level?
It's very, very different. What at the international level, what they're really talking about is compliance with methodologies. So there's a lot of rigor around that particular aspect, and they put community values, social values, Indigenous values. They see them as being very tokenistic. They see them as being very to the side, like it's very much, oh, we'll talk about that if we have to. Whereas in the real world, that's what comes first. Family comes first. So they get a bit lost in their own processes, and they become very, they talk about things that they are at a technical level, and they get lost in that technical level.
Right.
And so you got to ground them and go, well, it's actually about family, it's about community, it's about the environment that we live in. The other way I put it is a bit like when we talk about methodologies being, compliance versus integrity. So when people do a project and they get ticked off by the government, so with international rules, you've achieved compliance. The methodology says do A, B, C, and D. You do A, B, C, and D. All you have is compliance. You do not have integrity. So it's a bit like with my son getting a driver's license, right? So he's complied with the rules, and then coming home and going, oh, Dad, I'm a really good driver now. I go, well, you're a licensed driver. We want you to become a good driver, right? But becoming a good driver means having integrity on the road, means being polite and not cutting people off and doing the right thing. That, having a drive, there are plenty of bad drivers on the road with a driver's license.
Agreed.
That's the way I think about it, right? So simply having the technical compliance does not mean that you have a good project. It just means that you're technically compliant. Just like somebody's got a driver's license, they're technically compliant. It doesn't mean they're a good driver.
Right.
So it's like,
Got it. So Rowan, like this integrity part, right? Behavior plays a very big role in this, right?
Yeah, well, if not ripping people off is a behavior, then yes.
I mean, it's more, I don't know, it's psychology, or I don't know how I can put it, but integrity, I know it's a very important part of every human, right? So
well, and the odd thing about it is that these conservation groups, green groups, social justice groups, people normally on the left who profess these things, and then when you start looking at it and you start following the money, and you realize that the Indigenous people are actually being ripped off. That to me is a very awkward moment, because you look at their website, you look at what they say that they're doing, and you look at the photos. They always have the photos of the baby or the the women. They always have these ubiquitous photos, and then you go, okay, well, where's all the money going? And it's not going to the Indigenous people, I can tell you. It's going into their pocket. And so, and then integrity is just about simply that, doing the right thing. That's all it is. It's a fancy word for saying doing the right thing.
Okay, makes sense. So, Rowan, if governments and markets truly recognize Indigenous leadership as essential climate infrastructure, what would need to change in policy, regulation, or finance frameworks?
Well, there's actually a lot of things that would need to change, to be honest with you. And around those environmental, social, and cultural values, they need to be verified and they need to be a part of the project, not an add-on. And so at the moment, we have very much a hard science around greenhouse gas emissions, which is only one aspect of it. So the methodologies need to be modified to include environmental, social, and cultural values. And it presents a safer investment at the end of the day. Like, people sort of go, oh, that'd be nice. And they go, well, would you rather invest in a project that is legitimate, or would you rather invest in a project that rips people off? Which do you think is the safer investment? You know, and if you're a company and you have a risk management framework, within your risk management framework, which one would you say is a risky investment or safe investment? And I would argue that a safe investment is one where the Indigenous people are safe and secure, as opposed to a risky investment where the traditionals are being ripped off. Mm-hmm. So, like, for investors who are investing, it's a better bet. It's a safer option. And you can tell your board, you can tell your staff, you can tell your clients, hey, this is what we're doing. And if you want to come and meet the people, come and meet the people. Like, you know, this is a good thing. No one's being ripped off. There's no greenwashing. The money is going to the right people. The trees are there. Everything is legitimate. Everything is what we say in Australia. Everything is fair income. And so, you know, as opposed to something that is not, you know. And so if you're an investor, well, I know where I'd be putting my dollar, and it would be a safe investment.
Right. So, Rowan, I was just thinking, like, isn't the people who are investing, do they think about returns? Like, yeah, they do, but they don't ask the next question. So they just buy the carbon credit, and you go, yeah, but where did the carbon credit come from? It's a bit like buying a T-shirt. You go, you buy it or cheap pair of shoes, and you go, yeah, okay, you bought a cheap pair of shoes or a cheap T-shirt, but where did it come from? And you go, oh, it came from a sweatshop in Bangladesh or India. You know, so you got to ask the next question, like, where did it come from? Who's making it? Because those sorts of questions are now being asked. It's not just that I have the carbon credit. You go, yeah, but where did it come from? Mm-hmm. So those sorts of questions are now being asked. I see. Where do they come from? And then we see the conditions in which those people are living or working, and that raises more questions. Is that true?
Yeah. And the thing is that to do the right thing, it's easy. You know, that's what the Climate Integrity Alliance is like. Yeah, this is not difficult. This is not, you know, you don't have to be Einstein to figure out that we're making it easy. These are ethical investments that are easy. Now you can do the right thing, and you can have a safe investment. You just got to go to the right place, and now the right place now exists. So, and it didn't before, and that's the thing. It's like, and that's where, because you just sort of come across these things, and we're just doing our work, and we're just doing our stuff. But then increasingly, people ask about integrity, and then so then you've got to start to address these issues. Like, for us, it's just normal, like it's just what we do. But now we've had to be very clear about this. And so it's like, okay, well, we'll be very clear about it. You know, here's the Integrity Alliance. This is who we are. This is what we believe in. This is what we do. These are the people that we work with. We're very, you know, we've been doing it for 15 years now, and we're very happy to be even more transparent.
Yeah. So, Rowan, are there more integrity alliances?
Well, the International Voluntary Alliance, there's an international voluntary one who I've made contact with, and they're very good. So we're doing our own thing here, but we've made contact with them, and they've sort of reached the same conclusions that we've reached, you know. But it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah, I mean, every country should have integrity alliances, I guess.
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing. But it's early, we're in our first 12 months, so it's just early days.
Okay, Rowan. So finally, for emerging climate leaders who are listening to this podcast, what lessons from Indigenous land stewardship are most critical for navigating the next decade of climate action?
You can do the right thing according to Indigenous people and Indigenous lands. You just need to think about it. People, if you have a methodology or you have a program or you have a market, then you just think, okay, well, how can we make sure that Indigenous people benefit from this? And that I think that's been missing a little bit. People just have this set program or this set methodology, and they go, oh no, these are the rules. And you go, yeah, but those rules were designed not for Indigenous people. Like, maybe we need the rules to be designed to meet those requirements and to meet the requirements of Indigenous people, and design your own rules. Like, you can do this yourself. There's no magic here. There's no magic box. These are people just like you and me. They've come up with a set of rules. And once you start to figure that out, you go, oh, okay, well, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. So the other way of putting it is like building a house. You can build a house that's designed for Canberra or Washington or Ottawa, or you can design a house that's made for Fiji or, First Nations. The rules are the same. There has to be a roof, there has to be a kitchen, there has to be a bathroom, but you design the house for tropical conditions for Indigenous people. You can modify the rules to suit the environment and suit the people, just like building a house.
So, like, if I want to be, if I as a person want to do something good, can you suggest something like how can I be better?
Well, you can get in contact with us, and we're doing this in Fiji, we're doing this in Canada, where we're talking people through this process and giving them confidence and just saying, look, you can do this. It's okay. You can build this house. You don't have to be Einstein to build a house. You just need some tools and think. You think, well, okay, I'm going to build a house in Fiji. It's tropical. There's going to be a lot of people that live here. What would that house design look like? Okay, well, then you need the tools. Okay, well, now you need to put down a slab. Now you need a bathroom. Now you need a kitchen. You can we need electricity. Yeah, you can hire an electrician. Hire a sparky. Electrician can come in and you work with the electric. You don't have to be an electrician, but you tell him, I want a light here. I want a light over there. I want this air conditioning unit here. This is the design of our house. So, if you don't have the technical skills, you can bring it in, but you're the builder. You're the master builder. And if you need those technical skills, you just bring them in, and you say, right, we have an electrician for 3 days. He's going to wire the house, and this is exactly what I want. But I'm building the house. This is my house. I'm building it. I own it. My family benefits from it. It's on my land. It's my design. It's designed for my family, my community, my land. We're not building it for Canberra or Washington. But the walls need to stay up. The slab needs to be flat. The roof needs to stay on. There are rules. But you design it in a way that suits you. You can build houses in Fiji, just the same as you can build houses in Australia.
Okay. Thank you, Rowan. So this conversation reminds us that climate leadership is not only about innovation targets and market, it's about who leads, whose knowledge is valued, and how responsibility is carried over generations. Indigenous leadership shows that climate infrastructure is not only built from steel, capital, or technology, but from relationships with land, culture, and community. When traditional owners are recognized as system designers rather than stakeholders, climate action becomes more credible, resilient, and just. Thank you, Mr. Rowan, for sharing your experience, leadership, and perspective with us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining this important conversation. We will be back soon with more discussions on climate leadership and integrity. Until then, take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.